All right, welcome everyone to Master Contacts in Command, a foundation first series. This is the first class in the series for y'all to get into. It's one of the first applets that you really need to spend time learning here in Command. And today we are live here in Lakewood, Colorado at the Keller Williams Advantage office. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you all for joining me today. And thank you if you're joining here on YouTube at a later date. There is some great stuff in this class and I can't wait to show you. So let's jump in. First, we have to mention the TCPA, Telephone Consumer Protection Act. Please follow all of these lines and stay compliant with the information in here. If you need any information, we have some great resources at KW to help you understand and stay compliant with the TCPA. All right, let's get into today's agenda. First off, you'll see the evaluation up on the screen. You don't need to scan that right now, but I will ask for an evaluation at the end of the class just to get a little feedback on what you thought about the class, how it's going for you, what you learned, how the presentation went. I live off of feedback and do read every piece of feedback that I receive. So at the end of the class, that's just a little warm up for you to know. Please fill that out when I put it up at the end of the class. Now, here's what we're going to get into today. Number one, we have to know where you're at. We're going to take a look at your database and see what not only the quantity of people, but what is the quality of the data inside of your database currently, and what you need to do to improve that database, whether that's more people or more information. We're going to go through some examples of how to input data into the system. And data could mean new people, could mean information about those people, but we're going to go through exactly what you need to do and how you do that inside of Command. We're going to jump into the organization in Command and how we can find the people that we're looking for a communication, for a campaign, for anything we're doing with our business. We need to know how to maneuver around in Command, because once we have hundreds of people in there, it can be pretty overwhelming if you don't have any way to get to the group of people you want. That might be that 50 people you want to send an email to, not all 300. And so we're going to talk about ways to how you organize Command. How do you get to these different groups? How can you make the Contacts Applet look the way you want it to look so it gives you the information that you need for specific campaigns or just for some of your daily activities? And then finally, we're going to talk about how you take action from contacts, meaning how you actually can use the system to send an email, to send a text message, to track a phone call. There's lots of different ways for you to engage with your people through Command and take action on those contacts. And we're going to talk about that at the end, and that will wrap us up for the day. All right, so let's get into it. First, before we get into anything about Command and the actual tool, we have to talk about the most important model that comes out of the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. If you read through the first model that it talks about, the lead generation model, first thing you see is what you have on the screen in front of you, the 4 laws of the database. And this is what we need to follow in order to run a business. The foundation of our business is our database. And there are 4 steps that you are almost always doing. Number one is building your database. That is putting it together, putting people into a CRM. The CRM we're using today is KW Command CRM. And then rule number 2 or law number 2 is feed it every day. That's code for lead generate. You need to be lead generating every day, whether that's prospecting or marketing. Those people are going into your database and building out that information. And part of it is feeding it new people. The other part of it is feeding it new data, addresses, birthdays, home anniversaries, information about their life. All of that you want to be feeding into your database every day. Law number 3 is one of the most important here as well. Communicate systematically. That's what you hear about when you hear of the 36 touch, the 72 touch, or any touch program you might do for your database. That is the communicate systematically piece. And finally, law number 4, service all leads. When you get information from someone, whether that's from an open house, maybe from an event, maybe from social media, but any of those leads that come into your world, you follow up with them. You service that lead and provide the value that they need so that you can be their agent or their broker when the time is right for them. And having a system for all of these, there is tools in Command to help you with all of this. But today we are focused in on contacts. And I'll tell y'all, contacts is the number one used applet more than any other application inside of Command. Contacts is used more every day than anything else, and there's a good reason for that. And we already mentioned it. It's the foundation of your business, your database. It needs to be given attention every day so that you can track what you're doing, track the information you have, and have everybody in one place because our brains are not meant to remember all the things that we learn and hear about our clients and their phone numbers. Our brains are meant to think. And I want to keep you in that mode of thinking and let your database be the memory part of all of this. And you're going to see all kinds of ways to do that today. Let's get into it. And the first thing we need to check out is where are you at now? Where are you at? Build your database. Are you feeding it every day? But first, we have to look where is your database now? We use a tool inside of Command called the Database Health Score. And I'm going to have you check yours in just a moment. And the Database Health Score is going to tell us the quality of our database. It's going to show us the how many phone numbers we have for our contacts and emails and addresses, as you see at the bottom of the screen. Tells you how many total contacts you have as well. And you can see I have an overall database health score of 64.77%. And this number is built off of the information you see on the screen. Their name is 20% of that value. So that one is almost a given. You can't add a contact without a name in Command. That is the minimum information you need to add a contact in Command is their name. So that should be the easy one. Phone number, email, physical address. Those are the three of the five must-have pieces of information outside of their name, and of course their birthday, which you see at the bottom worth 4% of that score. This is all calculated per contact and what information you have, and then you get a total average score in which is your database health score. So now, what I want everybody to do when I stop sharing my screen is you're going to go into your command and you're going to click right here on the screen that has that little kind of bar graph on the left side. That's reports. It's going to put you right onto this page, and I want you to scroll down, and I want you just to add in now, what is your database health score? So go find your health score and then share it in the chat. I'll give you all just a moment to do so. All right, let's see who's going to have the highest health score. So far, 67, 68%, not bad. Not bad. 42, 59. 67, good, good. 45, okay. I hope y'all are seeing, number one, you're not alone in needing to work on your database. Because my goal and your goal should be having that number closer to 80%. If your number is at 80% for your database, that means that you're going to have most of the five must-have pieces of information for most of your contacts. That's where you want to be. And you can see where your holes are. If you're missing, if you're here, let me share my screen again so we can jump back into the visual. If you see yours is like my screen where you can see the holes in my database. Addresses, I have some. Neighborhoods, I have some. But my home anniversaries and birthdays are pretty lacking. That might be something that maybe next quarter when I'm doing my DTD2 reach outs, I'm going to focus on getting birthdays and home addresses. Or maybe I'm focused on addresses. This will help you organize your lead generation time for feeding that data about people into your database every day. Might say, hey, I'm going to call five people or I'm going to get five new addresses today. That's my goal. And I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow and the same thing the next day and the same thing after that. And then by the time you know it, you start having 50, 60, 70% of addresses in your command. And then that allows us to run all those touch programs that I talk about so often. We can't send them a birthday card if we don't have their address. We can't do the neighborhood nurture if we don't know what neighborhoods they're interested in. All this is important data for you to collect about people. And this is one way that you can track the activities at a higher level of seeing what is the impact on my database I'm having by calling five people a day and getting their home address. And you can see all of that in here. So this is a great tracking measurement. You know where you're at now. You just need to start moving that number up and up in terms of your database health score and up in terms of the number of total contacts. There is a great correlation between the number of contacts and the number of closings that you do in your business. That correlation generally is about 5%. If you have the information, you're talking to them 4 times a year, you're going through the model of the systematic communication, you should be getting back about a 5% return from number of contacts to number of closings for the year. So a 200-person database should result in about 10 closings. We also see that agents that have over 200 contacts in their database on average, make at least $80,000 a year in GCI. So if your goal is $80,000 or more, that tells you you should have at least 200 contacts, healthy contacts in your database to achieve that goal. And so if your number was less than 200, you should set a goal by the end of the third quarter. We're just about to start the third quarter. By the end of the third quarter, that you get to over 200 contacts with a database health score of at least 80%. That will put you in a position to be able to communicate at a high level systematically and truly use all the tools that Command has available for you to connect with your people. So the database health score, very important, very useful tool to see your progress as you're building your database, feeding it every day, and communicating systematically. All right. So now we've gone through where we're at. Let's talk about how we put data in. Now, some of this you may have seen before, and that's perfectly okay. There's going to be some stuff that you might learn here. And we're just going to talk about the simple steps to add data to our contacts, to add contacts in. You can see adding a single contact. We can bulk import contacts. We can add information right to a single contact. We can add activities that we're doing with that contact, like phone calls, emails, other things like that that we can track in the system. And then we're going to talk a little bit about neighborhoods as well. It's an important tool inside contacts that's pretty unique to KW Command. So let's jump into contacts together. So we'll go right up here. Contacts is the second item on the list on the left side. We'll click on contacts. And now you see we're here in contacts. And when we first talk about importing data or adding data into the system, all of it happens right up here in the top right corner of the screen. You see we have the import button and the add contact button. When we add a single contact, that's all it is just a single contact. Import is when we want to bring in more than one contact at a time. So let's talk about importing real quick. Importing a file needs to be a CSV file, comma separated values. It's a simple file type. You'll mostly know it as a spreadsheet, and it is a very simple file type for spreadsheets. That is the only file type it's going to read is a CSV. And the key here, y'all, is that in your file, the first row has to be the header titles. So for instance, let me show you what I mean by that. Here we have a CSV file on the screen, and the first row, row 1 here, has to be the titles of the columns, just like you see in here. Sometimes your spreadsheets might look like this, where they have a row above and they might have some general information. You need to delete that row. We do not want that in there. We have to have the first row being the headers. That will keep you and your file able to be uploaded to Command. And if we go through and just upload the file we just looked at, my little fictional characters full of fake people. Oh, didn't like my CSV. Well, we'll cancel. Won't go through that part then since my CSV didn't work. But basically what's going to happen is you're going to put that in and you'll hit continue. And after you hit continue, you are going to be presented with some mappings where it just says, hey, your contact file says first name. What part of Command should that go to? And you'll see there's an option that is first name. Last name goes to last name. Email goes to primary email. That's an important one to remember, is making sure that you put their email in the primary part. Same thing for phone number. You want to map the phone to the primary phone number. Address, same thing, primary address. Birthday is just a simple one. Birthday tags can also be brought in this way. We can bring in source of the lead in through this file. All of it just comes right in through the file. I'm always happy to help you with an import if you want to go through that on your first one. But that is the easiest way to import multiple people, is through bringing in your own file. Now you might notice up here, there is a template file. Most of the time, y'all, I don't recommend using the template file unless you have a lot of data. Like if you're moving from another CRM into Command, we might use the template file. but it's a lot easier just to use a simple file like you saw here. If you have a file that looks like mine on the screen, this is much easier to work with than trying to transfer all this data into the template that you can download and then upload it. You can just start right here with this. And as long as that first row is the header titles and you see it's something simple like this, that is the easiest way to bring people in. Very simple and efficient way to have imported contacts in bulk. But we also can just add one person at a time. So often that's really what we're doing is we meet somebody and we add them just one person at a time right into our database. And remember, you can do this from Command Mobile as well, but we're going to show you how to do it on the screen here. When I hit add contact, I have to put a name in. That's the minimum information needed. So we'll put first name, last name in there. And then of course we have the primary email, phone number. You can set all of those primaries, lead source and tags all on this first page. But remember to click into this additional contact information. This is where you can add additional emails, phone numbers, but most importantly, this is where the address goes. And as you start typing the address, you're going to see it populate, just like you've seen here for me. And I'll put in my address here. I can click on that, and I have to click on this because it's using Google to find that address. Now, occasionally you might run into somebody where you're typing in their address and it doesn't show up, especially those like stranger, more rural addresses where you might have a county road in there or something like that. But in those cases, you can always use this create as new if it's not populating in here. So just remember that if you ever run into that situation, but 99% of the time, the address is going to show up in here and you select it from the list below. And then you also have social media profiles that you can put in here. Saving somebody's Facebook link or Instagram link can make things a lot easier. If social media is a part of your business and you're prospecting through social media, marketing through social media, you want to bring those people into your database so that they can start getting some communications and you can be more systematic with your communications. Even if you just have a link, if I add that in here, that gives me the opportunity to set tasks for that contact and then be able to click right on their link and go right to their page when I need to send them that direct message or maybe interact with their page or put a comment on one of their previous posts. Just makes it a little easier if social media is part of your business. Then, of course, there's the About section. This is where you're going to find their birthday information. We don't need the year. As you can see, year is not in there. We just need month and day. Home anniversaries are in there as well, and company information like you saw on the database health score. Now, we're not going to get into it, but we do have custom fields where you're not going to see beer preference when you go into your command. That's a custom field that I've added to my command for a campaign that I do for thanking people for referrals and bring them some beer. And you can see I can track what kind of beer their preference is by making a custom field. That also includes custom fields like dates and birthdays. And there's even more that we can do with it, but we don't want to get too into the weeds today because that's a very specific use case. If a custom field is something you're interested in, you can always sit down with me. You can send me an email about it and we can talk a little bit more in detail about your situation. But that's it for adding a contact, y'all. It's very simple. We're going to create this one together. You can see the minimum info I put in is just their name. And it brings me right into the contact record that I can now see all of the different things I've input. On the left side, you're going to find all of their information. This is where you're going to go to look for birthdays or home addresses if you need it. It all shows up on the left side. And on the right side is their timeline. Timeline meaning any activity that is tracked by command shows up here, whether that's an email sent, a conversation you tracked yourself, a text message that was received from the client. It all shows up in the timeline. And that's a really important part of being able to utilize your system, not being the memory in your brain, but letting the system be your memory. It all comes down right in here. And when I want to add something to a contact, say now I have our contact's phone number. This pencil right up here at the top is how we now add data to this person if we want to add in their email. And you can see the window that pops up looks almost identical, if not identical, to the same window of when we hit add contact, but now their name's filled in or any other information that would be saved is in there. And we can add in their information and update anything we need from tags to birthdays to addresses to anything else. We can do that singly just by clicking on that pencil. Now, as you add contacts and you start communicating with them, you're going to need to track some of that activity manually. Now, if you send an email through command, it tracks it on its own. If you send a text through command, it tracks it on its own. But if you send an email through Google, it's not going to track that. You have to add that activity in if you want it to have a record. But most of the time, you're using this for phone calls. You're going to have a phone call with them, and then there's going to be some notes you want to take. And in that instance, we're going to hit add activity after that phone call. We're going to select our interaction type of call, and then we're going to put our notes in here that we talked about buying in the spring of 2026, dot, 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 and all the rest of our conversation, kids' names, birthdays, any info that I'm getting. I'm taking notes about their family, their work, their life, their recreation, their dreams. I'm taking notes about all of that, and this is where those notes go. So when we add the activity, we have that record that we see when we called them all right in here. And notice it's not just for calls. We have all these different activities that we can track. And the more that you track this information, y'all, the easier it is to know what has happened in the past. So when you go to contact them in the future, you can utilize the information that you have collected. And there's this really cool AI summary that once you have at least 5 tracked activities, it will then give you a summary of those activities. So instead of reading through all of them, you can just read the summary, which makes it really handy right before you're making that DTD2 call or that follow-up call to read through your little summary of what's happened over those last 5 interactions. So really cool uh, bonus content that we just got recently in Command is that little AI summary. Now, you'll also have the opportunity to add notes. And you'll see over here, there's a note section in Command. And you might be wondering, well, Stephen, what's the difference between a note and adding an activity? It's a great question. Because when I hit add note, look at how this shows up. We have a title and a description. We don't have an activity to track here. So I only add information as a note if there was no interaction between me and the client or me and the contact. If I just learned something or I wanted to put a note down about them, that just a reminder or something I learned about them outside of a conversation with them, I can just add it in as a note so that I have a record of that. And this note example, let's just put in an address here and hit add note. That note will show up in the note section, but you'll also see it in the timeline as well. The timeline kind of collects everything that you do with them, smart plans, tasks, all of that stuff gets dropped down in the timeline as a full record of everything that's gone on. And notice you can even filter your timeline. You might just want to see the last 7 days of information. You might see a custom date timeline that you're looking at. And then you can also filter your timeline by activities. Maybe we only want to see the email content, or maybe we only want to see the calls that we've talked about. We can filter that and then just see just the call there. So another handy way that if you're looking for an interaction or looking for what you've tracked in the past, that can help you find things a little bit quicker than having to scroll through a big list. Because once you do this a lot, you start getting into the habit, you're going to have 50, 60, 70 interactions in the timeline. And sometimes can be cumbersome to get through all of that. And that's why we have these filters here. All right. And remember, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Looks like I have one question in here. How would you track Facebook direct messages? I've categorized it as a text and specified in Facebook message in the description. I think that's a great way to go there, Priscilla. When we hit add activity, you can see DM is not an option here, and text is the most appropriate, in my opinion, as well, is to add it in as a text, say, Facebook DM is where I would start that note every time. If it's coming from a Facebook direct message or Instagram direct message, I just put a little tag label like that in there. FBDM or IGDM, just so I kind of know where it was at and where I interact with that person. Hopefully that answers the question there. Perfect. All right. Let's talk about neighborhoods. So over here to the left side, you see we have a neighborhood section. And one thing I love about Command is if we know their address, their neighborhood will be set for them. So real quick, I'm just going to toss an address in for this contact and hit save. And then watch what happens to the neighborhood section. Boom. Now they have a neighborhood So now I can send them the Neighborhood Nurture Smart Plan. If you haven't seen the Neighborhood Nurture Smart Plan, definitely check it out. I have some videos on that as well. It's one of my favorite smart plans to send out, and it's one of the best pieces of automation Command offers, where once we put it on, they get sent information about their primary neighborhood and any other neighborhood that I list here every month or every other week, because you can choose the frequency there. Now, these neighborhoods, if we have an address, that's really helpful. If they care about that neighborhood's real estate information. If they're renting in that neighborhood, they might not want to know about that. They might have a neighborhood they want to live in that they do want to know about. And that's a great way to ask people questions and say, well, if you could pick, where would you want to live in the metro area? Where would you want to live in the United States? Because remember, y'all, these neighborhoods are national. So it can be anywhere in the US that you can put somebody on a neighborhood and start sending them this information. And if I don't have a primary address and don't have something set, so if it looks like this on your screen for a contact, you can add a neighborhood without having to add the address. And to do so, you just hit add neighborhood. I do not suggest using the search bar. Neighborhoods are named by the residents, so sometimes it's not what you expect. So I suggest just click find on map, where the map will bring you into where you are if you allow the location to be read. And then you can see as I zoom in, all the neighborhoods start to populate. And if I want to just add a neighborhood, I just click on it. That's simple. And this is what I'll do for a lot of clients, even if I have their address. I'll come into the map and just select some of the neighborhoods around them, because oftentimes these neighborhoods are so localized, so small, that having some idea of the real estate around them might be helpful. And you know your people best, you know the areas, you'll know what neighborhoods are best that fit their neighborhoods dynamics that might be around them. And so it's that simple to add more in. Maybe I don't want Del Mar North in there. I can just delete it by clicking the X there. And then when I hit save, now all those neighborhoods are added in, and I can add them to the Neighborhood Nurture Smart Plan. One of my favorites, like I mentioned before, such a great tool for y'all to utilize for your buyers and where they want to be, and for your sellers for where they're at now and where they want to go in the future. Those are the neighborhoods you want to add in, because the more valuable the neighborhood is to the contact, the more often they're going to open that email from you. All right, that is neighborhoods. Last, I just want to mention a couple of the other options up here in these different tabs across the top. So opportunities, you can create an opportunity right from the contact card from, oh, sorry about that, y'all. Let's jump back in there. Oh no. Let's see. All right, let's look for first name. Um, oh, here. Well, we'll just get into the other contact. I don't want to mess up the YouTube video. All right, we'll just look at John Arbuckle here. So we're going to go to opportunities again. You can see I can click on create opportunity to put that into the pipeline. If there is an opportunity created already, it'll show up here. And same thing, you have filters to find the opportunity that's the one you're looking for. Smart plan, same thing here. You can add people, this individual, to a smart plan right from this option. We can select our plan and then be able to choose when it's going to go out to that person. If they are on a smart plan currently, you'll see it listed here. This is where you can also remove that person from a smart plan. So if I add my buddy here to this smart plan and refresh the page, you'll see there will be a 1 next to the smart plan option at the top now, telling me there's one smart plan they're on. And here it is. It'll also tell you last executed date. And if I hit this minus sign, it removes them from the plan. That is how you individually remove somebody from a smart plan or add them to one. Next, we have tasks up at the top. Same thing here. If they have a task that is made for them, it'll show up here. If there are no tasks, it'll look like my screen here, and we can hit create task to be able to set that follow-up. Because after we take our notes, the next step is to create a task so we can systematically follow up with them by knowing when we're going to communicate with them next. And one of my favorite things about tasks is that you can set them to be repeating down here at the bottom. So if you want to be reminded to connect with that person, to hit their direct messages on Facebook, or to make a phone call or send a personalized text, or anything that you want to be reminded to do on a regular basis, this is a great way to utilize the tool inside of Command with your task manager. And if you aren't familiar with the task manager, I have a great full-length video called From Chaos to Clarity, all about the task manager. It's another part of the foundational series that's already been taught. It's on my YouTube channel on Control Command. Definitely check it out. If you have not learned about tasks, check that video out. It goes hand in hand with being able to utilize the contacts and tasks to create that systematic communication that we mentioned in the 4 laws of the database. All right. And the only other one we haven't mentioned is saved searches. Saved searches are another fantastic tool for you to use when you want to show properties to people. I love saved searches because now they don't have to sign into your website to get them. Previously, they did. Now they just have to click a link before they'll start getting the searches. They'll get an email with a link in there. You'll see in command that if they've clicked that email, if they've submitted the link, you'll get a notification here on the contact that shows they've accepted it. Or if they haven't, it'll just say that it's pending. And if after 30 days of pending, it goes expired, and then you can send it again if you need to. But save searches are great. We can create um, searches that go out daily, weekly, monthly, instantly. Every 30 minutes is instant in our system, that it pushes out any updates to their saved search. And you can do beds, bath, price, lot size, year built, some basic criteria to really get to the homes that they want. And you can define the area from um, anywhere from neighborhoods, zip codes. You can define the map just by drawing on the map. It is a really, really great system to be able to push properties to people because folks love to look at real estate. Put them in a position to look at real estate on your website by using the save searches. All right, we had a couple of questions in the chat. Let me check these. Okay. Great question from Elizabeth. She said, if we update or change neighborhoods, will the Nurture Smart Plan update on its own? Yes, Elizabeth. If we have them on the neighborhood nurture plan and we change the neighborhoods, it will automatically update for you on the next email that goes out to them. Great question. Any more questions before we jump into the next section of the class? All right. So let's move to the next section here. Organize. Organizing your database will make your life so much easier. And organizing your database first should start with the merge tool. You should know how to use the duplicate checker in command. And then you need to know how to use the filters to find the people you want. And then we have a set of advanced filters that can really dial in exactly who you want. And then, of course, we have smart views as well, which are kind of like a saved search for our contact screen. And we're going to make one together. So that hopefully will make more sense once we get through it. So let's first start with merge. If we go back to our contact list, oh, we have a question in the chat here. Let me answer this one. Is the smart plan for birthdays to remind us about the client's birthday? Yes, there absolutely is, Linda. It's already in your account. It's called the Birthday Smart Plan. You can add anybody to it that you have a birthday for. As long as you have that month and date in there, you can put them on the Birthday Smart Plan. What that plan does is it will remind you to send them a card a week before their birthday. It will remind you to make a phone call to them the day before their birthday. The day of their birthday, you're going to get a reminder to hit their social media. And if you have Twilio connected in your command, it will send a text message that you have pre-written over to that client and or that contact. And so yes, birthday smart plan, awesome plan, but you do have to have their birthday in there to utilize it. Great question. All right, let's talk about merging a contact or two contacts. So two contacts is when we have two contacts saved that are the same person and that are the same person, and you want those two contacts to be one instead of two. Think about the situation where you added them in from your phone and you had an older email address and no phone number, and then you added them in later where you added in a new phone number and a new email address. So now you have John Arbuckle, but you have two contacts with different information. And in that case, we're just going to pretend John and Frodo are the same person. And we want to combine or to merge those two contacts. We just select the two contacts, come up here to the Actions menu, and then we come down and you'll see one of the options is Merge. And it gives you the two options of the contacts. You select the one you want to keep. So if I select John, it's going to take all of the information over here in Frodo and push it into John's contact so I don't lose any information. If it sees information that's the same, it doesn't duplicate it, just says, oh, those are the same, and it will merge in everything from tags to neighborhoods. All of this information merges in to that single contact so you can get rid of that duplicate by merging them together. Great way to be able to organize and clean up the database when you see that you might have multiple contacts that are the same person but have just different information. So merge, great tool. But there's another level to this. We don't have to look through our database to find those people. Command will do it for you. And all you have to do to ask Command to look for duplicates is click on these three dots up here at the top right of the screen. And the first option is check for duplicates. And it will run the scan. After it's completed the scan, you'll see right up here at the top of the screen, I now have a 1 in my notification bell. And when I click on it, it says I have 3 pairs of potential duplicates. And I'll click on Review Duplicates. So instead of me looking for those people, I can see here, Command sees a John Smith and a John Smith. Well, those might be 2 different people. If they are different people, I just hit Ignore, and I get rid of that. Here we see we have Brian Smith twice, different email addresses, but we have the same phone number for each. So when I go in and I try and merge them, I can say, okay, well, let's see. I want to keep this one here, and I'm going to merge all the other data into this one on the right. So I'll hit continue. It gives me a nice little summary of everything it's going to be adding in. And then we hit merge and delete the duplicate. And then this duplicate will, when I refresh my screen, that duplicate I just merged, well, should be going away. It should in a moment. And then that is how we run the duplicate checker. Great way to keep your database clean and make sure that you're not over sending emails to the same person, or you don't have multiple contacts where you might save something in one person and then you go back in 3 months and you save it to the other contact and now they're separate. What a mess. Use your duplicate checker and merge function. And of course, you have a merge history as well, so you can see what you've done in the past if you need a record or you need to see if something has gone down that maybe wasn't supposed to, or you're just curious to see where that's coming from. And there's my record in here, and I can view the details to the right side. So that is your duplicate checker and merge function. Let's jump back to contacts and talk about filters, because really this, y'all, is how you bring efficiency to your database. Right now, you're only looking at a sliver of my database. I have around 900 people in here, but we are currently just looking at my class view of 85 people. And in here, we're just looking at a single tag filter, because I just filter these because YouTube gets mad if I put real people on here on video. So we use these fake contacts. And so we're going to stick in here, but over to the right side, when I click on filters, just take a look at all the different things that we can filter through the basic filters. From lead source, tags is going to be one you use quite a bit. Searching tags is very simple. If I want to find my A&W tag, I just type it in and check it off. And then we can hit apply to just get to those contacts. And I'm not going to do that yet for a good reason, but we'll get to that in a moment. Lead source, I love this agent site connection. If you want to just see the people who are connected to your KW app or KW site, you just choose that connected and hit apply. And then you can see if they have that green check mark next to their name, they're connected to the site. And you can see Peter Rabbit has connected to my site. Another one to mention in here, we can check neighborhoods. If they're not on a neighborhood, you can find everybody really easily saying, hey, command show me everyone who's not on a neighborhood. Oh, here, let's remove that client or agent site connection. All these people are missing a neighborhood. And so you can use this also to help you fill in information, to fill the holes in your database of people who might not have neighborhoods that you want to send the nurture to. Another good one that I like to mention is the smart plan option. You can come in here and say, show me anybody who's on no smart plan, on any smart plan, or you can select a specific smart plan and just show all the people who are on that specific smart plan. So great filter there as well. We have birthday filters, so you can find who's coming up in the next 30 days and the last 30 days. Same thing with home anniversary. All these different options that you can utilize. You can search through these. primary email contains this information. So there is a ton of filters that you can utilize to find the group of people that you need right through the normal filters. But occasionally, you may want to dial it in even more. And that in that case, that's when you want to use the advanced filters. So same way to get in there. We click on the filters, and then up at the top right, we click on advanced. Then this window pops up. Right now, you can see the filters we have are where neighborhoods are empty and tags are example contacts. This is when we can really start dialing in the exact people that we want in our list. And one of the first things you have to understand is the second drop down. The first drop down is going to be where you want to search. The second one is really important to understand the difference between some of these options. Includes any, for instance, in tags, would mean if I have multiple tags in here, so let's put another one in here, A&W. If I choose includes any, it's going to be show me any contact that has example contacts and any contact that has the A&W. They don't have to have both. They only have to have one of the tags listed here if I choose includes any. If I change that to includes all, now we are saying they have to have both of these tags to show up in my list. So instead of just the example contacts or A&W, they have to have both to show up in this filter. That's the difference between includes any, where it's any tag, they can have any one of the tags, or includes all, where they have to have all the tags listed, or whatever else you put in here that you're trying to filter. And you'll see sometimes that doesn't look that way. For birthdays, it doesn't make sense. So you see it's is within next, last is longer than. This field is helpful too. Because if we choose is empty, that's going to show us everybody who doesn't have a birthday. So if you saw when you looked at your database health score that you're missing birthdays, well, this is how you find the people that don't have birthdays. We filter where in birthday and is empty, and then we say apply, and then it shows us all the people who are going to not have a birthday. Dang it, wasn't supposed to put that filter on, y'all. All right, we'll see if command will behave nicely with me. Here we go. Good. Hopefully YouTube won't be mad. All right. Let's see. So we did our advanced filters. Really, really great way to dial in exactly who you're looking for. You might do something like, well, tags are example contacts, and then you might add another filter in because now we can add layers to find truly exactly who we're wanting. And you can add many of these filters as you need to find the people that you need to in your database. But it all starts, as you saw, a lot of it starts with tags, starts with the data that you input, birthdays, home anniversaries. The more data you put in, the more opportunity you're going to have to filter through your contacts and find exactly who you're looking for. Right. Good, good. All right. So let's take a look at a smart view. Smart views, you might have just seen me kind of clicking through here. A smart view is like a saved search for your contacts, meaning if I want to be able to find a certain group of people over and over again, I'm going to create a smart view instead of going through all those filters every time. And we're going to create a smart view together right now. If you're familiar with this strategy here on the screen called Do the Database To, or for short, DTD2, where we go through and we call people according to the first letter of their last name. And every week has a different pair of letters to call. If we look through at this week, I think we are in August or June, I believe this. So we are on INQ this week, but we're not going to do INQ because generally INQ doesn't have too many contacts personally for my database. Not a lot of people with last name starting with I, not a lot of people starting with last name starting with the letter Q. But we are going to do the smart view for the D and O section, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So first, you have to tag people with those tags. This doesn't work if you don't tag them. So I have all my people with last name starting with D tagged with the D tag. I also have them tagged with the D and O tag. So I can pull up either because sometimes I just want the D group. Sometimes I want the paired group for my calls. So if I want to filter just those, so I can create a smart view. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to filter D and O. So we're going to come up to advanced we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say they have to have the example tag and they have to have a tag that includes D. Do, do, do. Come on. Let's get our D tag in here. Has to include D and has to include the O tag as well. And we'll search for that one. Let's scroll down and find the O tag. It does come up in alphabetical order, so I know it's going to be closer to the bottom here. And there we go. And now we'll hit apply. Now I'm only looking at people who have the example tag, D, or D and O. And there you go. You see there's all the people. We have 15 people in the list. Now I'm going to want to come back to this list over and over again. And so I'm going to create a smart view of this list. But before we do, remember smart views are everything in here, not just the filter. But if I change the sort order to sort by last name A to Z, it will save that as well. If I click on customize columns, I can choose the exact columns I want to include on the left. So maybe I want to have included in here, let's include birthday so I can easily see if I have it or not. And let's include phone and email. And on the right side is the order they show up. So I'm going to put birthday closer to the top. And I'm going to put primary email closer to the top. And that's just so I can easily see where they're at. You can see there we go. We have all these fake emails in here and my email, of course. But we now have our search. We have it organized in the way we want it. We have it sorted by last name the way we want it. We have the columns we want showing up. Now I'm going to click on this option here at the top of Smart Views and hit Create Smart View. And so now I'm going to call this D and O and hit Save Smart View. Now, anytime that week comes up where you can see D&O comes up 4 times a year. It's going to come up on July 1st, going to come up October 20th, January 20th, and the week of January or April 21st. And so I'm going to need to pull this up multiple times. That's why I create a smart view. And so if we come back to my default, when I come into command, this is what the default smart view is my example contacts. This is what it will always come to when I log in. And then when it's time to call D&O, I just come in here, click on D&O, and there's my call list for the week. Now you can do that with anybody in here. If I have any Spanish speaking people in here, I'd probably have a Spanish speaking smart view. So I can just pull up everybody I've tagged with Spanish. That tells me that they speak Spanish. And so if I want to send my Spanish written newsletter to them or send something in just the Spanish language, I can just pull up my Spanish smart view, and then there's all my people tagged with Spanish, sorted the way I want them sorted, organized the way I want them organized. And so smart views can be a huge efficiency for you to make sure that you can quickly get to the same groups that you need to get to over and over again. Lots of different ways to utilize this, y'all. Just think of it as a saved search for your contacts. All right, let's see if we have any questions come in yet. Nope, I don't see any questions in the chat yet. And so we talked about merging the duplicate checker, filters, advanced, and smart views. And to wrap up today, we're going to talk about taking action. Because taking action means we can do actions with single contacts, and we talked about some of those earlier. We can do bulk actions as well. And we mentioned the save searches as well. I even got ahead of myself. Look at me go. And so let's talk about some of that. When I say an individual contact, what I mean is you're going to click into that contact, and then we can do things like sending an email or sending a text message. Here, let me get to one that has an email and phone number. If I wanted to email Megatron here, all I do is click on their email, and then I can click on command email, and it will open up an editor where I can just email this single person right here in command. I can do the same thing here where you can see I have the option to call, but I'll tell you, if you don't have a third-party service to call from your computer, this won't work. But I can send a text through Twilio, and I can send a text through WhatsApp as well if you have WhatsApp connected. And I had a question earlier that what is Twilio? Great question. Twilio is a third-party service that provides the service of sending bulk text messages out to people through a system like Command. Twilio is great. It's a way that I can send bulk messaging to people. It keeps me safer in the TCPA because what your phone doesn't do is if somebody says stop, it unsubscribes them from you. That doesn't happen from your Verizon line or your AT&T or T-Mobile line. That only happens with services like Twilio, where when they say stop, you literally cannot text them again through that phone number, which is an important part of the TCPA and those guidelines. They need to have that option to keep you compliant. So Twilio helps in that way. Just know Twilio is not coming from your personal phone number. You're going to get a Twilio number that is yours, but it's not going to be your cell phone number. It's going to be a different number. And so we just introduce it as our business line in my business. Just let people know, hey, we don't communicate with this for any junk. We only send you important stuff and events that are happening through the year. And we mostly use it for sending event invites, sending invites to home buyer classes to the people who have registered for our events and say they're interested in them. We use all of that and we use Twilio to get that information out to them. So in short, Twilio is just a bulk text message sender that you can use through command. And you can see in here, I can do that. And one of the cool things about using this feature when we just click on their name is we can actually send photos or files. You cannot do that through a text message in a smart plan. You can only do it in this one-off instance, and you can do it in bulk as well. And we'll go through that in a moment. But I can do those individual touches, email, or I can send a text. I can put them on a smart plan that we saw earlier. Save searches, we went through that one as well. But for these individual, that's about all we can really do for the individual. But if we go back to contacts, we can do all those things and more in bulk. But notice right now, do you see up here how there's no button next to the selected option? We don't have anything, we can't click. But once we select at least one person, watch what happens right up here when I select myself. Boom, the actions drop down appears. I just have to select that one person. So remember that, because sometimes agents get frustrated when they're looking for the actions menu before they've selected anybody and they freak out because they can't find it. Well, you can't find it because it's not there. But as soon as you select at least one person, now I have the actions menu where I can do all of these different actions in bulk. We can add an activity. I use this mostly for like open house leads. When I've called all of them after the open house or texted all of them manually, I can come in and just hit add activity and then add the same activity for all of them. Sent, thank you for coming, text, will call on Monday. Something like that is an easy activity to just add to everybody without having to go through and add them one by one. We can do things like, let's see our other options. Adding tags. This is a big one. This is how you can easily start that organization when you're building your database, is you add tags in bulk where you select all the people who need the Spanish tag, and then you hit add tags and you hit start typing in Spanish. If you don't have the tag, you just hit create. Here I have it, so I'm just going to hit submit. And now those two people are going to have the Spanish tag. And so you can see there's a lot of different options in here. Add to email list is if you're using MailChimp. Add to smart plan. This is my most commonly used one, is when I want to add a bunch of people to a smart plan. I just come in here, add to smart plan, then it looks very similar to what you saw me do for the individual. Now it's just for more people than just that one. We have actions in here where you can archive people. If you're wondering how to get rid of people out of your database, here it is. This is how you clean up your database and get rid of people who don't belong. We archive them where they don't go away. They just get put in the settings where they're not in the database. They're not being emailed. They're not being touched. And yes, you can go into the archive and delete people permanently. If you're on a team, you'll see this change account option. Here's some of your export options. If you don't want to export the whole database, you can just export a segment of it by utilizing this tool right here. You'll see if you do an export, it will be emailed to you in a link to download to your communications email you have set with the office. Let's see, any other good ones to talk about? Oh, yes, of course, remove tags. This is a really good one as well. So if you want to come in here, you'll see everyone I've selected. It shows me all the tags that any of them are on. And so even if one contact is on that tag, I can remove that SOI tag from that person. I can remove the Spanish tag from just those two people who have it. And it's as simple as that to remove tags. So very, very simple and easy way. Tags are very flexible, y'all. So start your organization with your tags. If it ever changes, it's not hard to adjust. And then finally, let's just mention same things. I can send email just like we did when we clicked on that one person's email. We can just come in and send an email to all of these people, and it does not come through as a group email. It is individually sent to each of these contacts, but it has all the same information in it. And yes, we still have merge tags. So I can come in here and say contact first name by clicking on that little plus sign. So it'll actually put in C3PO instead of just saying, hey there, I can put in C3PO in there and then start typing my message out and putting that in there. And so great way to email people. Same thing with the text messages. You'll see that's an option in here as well. Send text where again, it's using Twilio, but I can send a bulk message to all these people, the same message, but notice no merge tag in here. We can't use a merge tag in the text message, but we can add a file in here. So that's the difference between texting in bulk like this and texting through a smart plan. Smart plan, I can include the merge tag. When I'm doing it in bulk, like you're seeing on the screen, the advantage here is I can include a file, like an image, if I wanted to or if I needed to for that situation. So different ways to use the texting tool. This is a simple way to blast out a text message to a group of people that you want to communicate that day. And then finally in here, you won't see the share copy unless you're on a team. And then we have the mark as lead, unmark as lead. It's a conversation for another time in there. I wouldn't worry about using that until you get at least over 200 contacts and we start talking about lead generation of collecting information from people we don't know. That's what we use the lead for, and or the lead indicator for in there. Is to just differentiate between people we've have relationships with, we've talked to them, versus people we have info for, but no relationship with them. And that, y'all, is the contact system. If you can get through this and you learn all of these things, you're going to be set up for success for you to be able to utilize this tool at the highest level, knowing where you're at now with the database health score, how to input data into the system, how to organize and find your people and take action once you have those groups. And if you could take a moment for me and pull your phone out, scan the QR code on the screen and give me a little bit of feedback for today's class. We're going to jump in there real quick, and I think I just need to add in for y'all the the class. So give me a moment to do that. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, YouTube, for being with us today.